Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Sean, and today we are talking about Gatsby. And this copy was provided for review, but the thoughts in this video are all our own.
Gatsby is designed by Bruno Cathala and Ludovic Maublanc, and it is a two-player specific game that takes place in the roaring 1920s. Let's take a look at how it plays.
At the start of the game, choose to play as either Dorothy or James. On your turn, you move the action token to an available action space, which will allow you to do things in one or two of the three locations on the board. Your goal is to gain the character tiles available at each location. In the cabaret, you'll place tokens next to any already placed token. You gain characters when you either create an unbroken line from edge to edge or cover all the spaces with a gear. At the finance center, you just move up the track, one space if you're in front, or even with your opponent, or two spaces if you're behind, and gain the characters on your way. At the racetrack, you add tokens to the various rows and gain characters if you have a majority when a row is complete. At all of these locations, you can also gain bonuses, including free actions, special action tiles, and one-time abilities, including swapping two characters on the board, swapping two tokens, and deciding what action your opponent will use on their next turn. The game ends as soon as a player has either three of the same color character or one character in each of the 5 different colors. If neither thing happens once all characters are collected, you add up the stars across all collected characters, and then the greatest socialite is named.
So that's the overview of how to play, and every decision you make, you are considering what that opens up for your opponent. But I really like the action selection system, where once you pick an action, you at least know that that's an action your opponent can't do.
Yeah, because it does block it off. But one important thing to talk about, though, before we go too into the game, is that this is really Gatsby in name only. Although we are obviously both fans of the Great Gatsby, there isn't that much Great Gatsby in this. You're not going to get Nick Calloway or Daisy or any of the characters that you would recognize. You don't even get Jay Gatsby other than a little mention in the rules and on the back of the box. Instead, this is 2 brand new characters that have nothing to do with it. They just are kind of within that world.
Yeah, and the actions are kind of within that world and the general aesthetic. So if you were to kind of look at it, you would maybe guess the era, but I don't think you would pinpoint it as being specifically Gatsby.
But it's very tenuous. But anyway, let's talk about the actual game. And yeah, I like that action selection system, that you've got that big chunky wooden action selector, which I really like as well. But whatever you put that on, the other person can't. But you do have, that means that there's 3 things that they can put that token on. And those are, like, everything you do is really helpful in this game. But sometimes you can kind of make people do stuff that is going to set up stuff for you at the same time. So like at the cabaret, you want to be able to get to certain spaces, especially those gear spaces, because once you're on 4 gear spaces, you're going to get that one, the one that you can only get, so the one person that you can only get by going to those, and you really do need someone else to get you close to that so that you can go on that. Same with finance. If they're 1 step above you, it means you can go 2 spaces. So you really don't want to be 1 step above somebody. And the racetrack as well, you can force them to put something in because you need to fill that column before you can take the person. So there is a lot of, I need you to do this so I can do it, but also I don't want you to do this because that's helpful for you.
Yeah, and I do like that there is a little bit of a way to kind of mess with where the tokens are, because there are a lot of spaces which are swap tokens. Because I think sometimes the racetrack at first felt a little bit like, well, it's just obviously going to be like this person who wins it. But then once we started really using those swap token spaces strategically, then that can really switch the racetrack, and it also really messes with the cabaret as well. So anytime those spaces are available, it's almost like too many choices of what do I want to swap.
Yeah, and you can also combo things quite a bit in this, where you can get 1 or even 2 extra actions on a turn depending on where you're going. But the interesting thing is how each one of those places is really simple, but there is that layer of strategy underneath that, and there is a layer of strategy underneath this.
Yeah, because I think one of those layers of strategy are the tiles that you're trying to collect, because first of all, a lot of those start off face down. You will have opportunities to look at some of them and swap them, so that can be quite valuable. But what you're trying to do is collect 3 of one color or 1 of each color. And so there may be specific ones that you're gunning for, because ideally you would win the game that way. If nobody wins that way, then it goes to the number of stars on your tiles. But I'm always trying to win those other ways.
Yeah, and obviously the best way to win is 3 the same color, because that's the fewest tiles you can win with, but there are 3 in the box. You don't know what those are, especially at the start of the game, and you've got at least half of the tiles, I think more than half, face down to begin the game. So you can't be sure, even if you see 2 red ones face up, you don't know if that 3rd red one exists or if that is away in the box. So 3 of those tiles is, almost a quarter of the tiles that are missing from the game. So that's a pretty good chunk.
There are also special action tiles, and these can be quite powerful because this will give you an opportunity to do actions that aren't part of the main actions, and it will never be blocked because it's only available to you.
Yeah, so that you just add that to that row of actions, but it just goes on your side and only you can do that. The other person can make you do that if they get so there's actually one bonus thing we hadn't talked about where you choose what the next person's action is going to be. And we use that a lot because that can really set you up because you're making them do something, and that means that you're freeing up the rest of the somethings for you to be able to do next time. So that can be really, really useful.
Yeah, definitely. And so it is just an interesting decision always of where you want to go, what you want to block for your opponent, and how the game is progressing. Because at certain times, the spaces will become less useful. Like the racetrack, those get covered up every time you fill a row. So there may only be 1 row left that you don't even have a chance of winning. So you're going to be less likely to want to go there.
So let's move on to the components. And so they've got some actually really nice components in here. You've got this board that folds out into those 3 sections. The one section, the cabaret, has got an open hole in that where you're going to put in those 4 cabaret tiles, but you can rearrange those, put those however you want. So that is going to change a little bit each game. But I think the nicest thing is your player components. You've got these nice little wooden discs for your character. Then you got this big wooden disc that you're using as the main disc that you're flipping back and forth for the 2 different characters. Those are Dorothy and James. Again, not part of the novel whatsoever, but that's fine. And then you've just got, the nice artwork throughout it that does look very nicely 1920s.
Yeah, because the characters that you're collecting are all on thicker tiles. The artwork is nice. It's really clear how many points they are because they all have star values. You also have the overlays that go on the racetrack. And I think that's pretty much everything. So it doesn't come with a lot, but I think the stuff that it comes with, I think it does work and it does look good.
And the rule book does a really good job. Everything's really clear. All the icons are really clear. This is one we had to read once quickly. We knew everything that we needed to know in 10 minutes. We never had to look at it again.
So moving on to replayability, and this is a 2-player abstract game. So I think you just get a lot of replayability with that kind of game because all of what you're doing is going to be influenced by your opponent and what you're trying to stop your opponent from being able to do.
And this is Bruno Cathala, who is one of the very best at 2-player specific games. Obviously, him and Antoine Bauza together
made Seven Wonders Duel, which is one of the very best two-player specific games that's out there. And yeah, and you can see a lot of what he's done in some of those other two-player games here, where you've got those three different ways, not really three different ways to win, but you've got those three different kind of fields that you're on, you're bouncing between those. And like you say, it is very abstract, and it really does have that head-to-head abstract strategy where every single thing that I do affects you, every single thing that you do affects me. So you really are looking at your opponent, looking at what they're doing. Absolutely you are. And you're really messing with them as much as you can every single turn.
Yeah, and there are just other little bits of replayability. For the cabaret, those boards can go in different orientations. There's also the special action tiles, and those will give you actions that you normally don't have available. And just the character tiles get randomly distributed, and you're not using all of them in a game. So just like which ones are in a game is going to change game to game. So moving on to final thoughts, and this is one we were both interested from the title because we like Gatsby, and it isn't really Gatsby themed because you don't have any of the familiar characters, but it does have that aesthetic.
Yeah, it does, and you can kind of put yourself in it if you dress up for it, which I think one should do for every game. But yeah, it does have a little bit of it, and the characters look cool, but I just wish that they were, you know, from just names from the book. I get why not, because there's an awful lot of murder. There's an awful lot of like stuff going on there they don't really want in this game. They just wanted couple of people at the party, so I get that. I just wish there was some way to inject just a little bit more of it in there. But beyond that, I think it is a fairly solid two-player game. It is pretty simple, but I think there's kind of more to that simplicity than one expects.
Yeah, because all of the three arenas work a little bit differently. I like for the finance district that if you're behind, you move two, because we like really take advantage of that. And there's enough different bonuses with being able to do an extra action, or being able to swap your tokens, or being able to make the other player do a specific action that makes each decision interesting. But I will say that I think this does feel a little bit different than games that are out there, and I appreciate the like slightly different theme, and I was pleasantly surprised because it did seem very simple on the surface, but there was just enough like under the hood that I was able to kind of feel clever with some of the combos I was pulling off.
Yeah, and we have played this a bunch of times too, and I'm like keen to play it again. So all of that does speak highly for it, and the fact that we dressed up for this video as well, it's not often you get me to put on a bow tie, so that does say something for it too. And that is it. Have you played Gatsby? What did you think? And are there other games from the Roaring 20s that you might recommend?
Thank you so much for watching, and as usual, please like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.